Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Too Many Guys Soccer Show short. This is Chelsea Mike Shistak, and this week we'll be previewing the third round proper of the FA Cup, which will go off this weekend throughout England and Wales. If you follow the show, you know that in addition to being a Chelsea supporter, up there, I'm also a fan of lower league English football. So this weekend is, from my perspective, one of the most fun of the entire soccer year. And while the trophy is usually decided later in the spring by the major Premier League clubs with the ginormous payrolls and the competition sort of regresses to the mean of what you would expect, hope springs eternal for many sides all the way down to the fifth level of English football this weekend. From an American perspective, I would compare it to the first and second rounds of the NCAA basketball tournament. So most of the Premier League sides who are drawn against lower league sides are going to go through, but one or two are probably going to lose, and that is going to ignite these lower league fan bases and hopefully turn their seasons for the better. Think of it like a 15 beating a 2. It's magical. So first, let's take a look at this year's coverage. Then we'll talk about some of the matchups we're going to see. Then what to look for in some of the lower league matchups and who could pull off some of the biggest upsets in this, the third round proper of the English FA Cup. So on the coverage, from start to finish, the FA Cup is televised here in the United States by ESPN. And unfortunately, if you aren't a subscriber to EN Plus, you're going to miss everything as, according to the schedule that's posted right now, the cable networks of ESPN will not be showing any of the matchups this week. I'm sort of confused why. I mean, I'm not a Nielsen ratings expert or anything like that, but I find it difficult to believe that ESPN2's daily sports wagering show will draw higher than Man U Everton on Friday afternoon. Again, I'm not a TV exec, but unless you subscribe to ESPN Plus, you're going to be shut out this weekend. Naturally, later, as the FA Cup moves to later rounds, it'll be back on the conventional delivery methods. But the plus side of ESPN's decision to go streaming with the third round proper is every single matchup will be covered, and you can watch them all. So if you want to watch Millwall Sheffield in a championship top 6 matchup, it's there for you. The non-league side, Wrexham, owned by Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, the focus of a TV program here in the States, they are going to be on TV, and you'll be able to watch them if you follow the show. Additionally, on Saturday, ESPN is going to give us what they're calling the Goal Show. Sounds a lot like the Golazo Show on the Paramount Champions League and Europa League coverage, because it is. And it's, if you're not familiar with that, it's sort of similar to Red Zone for the NFL, where they will take you to every single ground and show you the goals as they happen. It's a great option if you want to watch as many matches as possible. But I will tell you this also. The ESPN app on Apple TV, which I have, will let you do a 4-match split screen option. So if you'd rather watch an entire match of your side and throw on 2 or 3 others, that is available to you. So let's go ahead and talk about those matches. I suppose I'll start with the all Premier League matchups, which honestly are very often some of the most boring games on offer in the third round. With the Premier League in the middle of its fast and furious festive season, where they're playing a lot of games every week, we're going to see a lot of squad rotation, especially in matchups where Premier League sides take on lower league sides. So this week you'll see a lot of guys with numbers in the 60s on the pitch. But this season in those Premier League matchups, I think there are a number of interesting storylines. The first matchup of the third round, the 3 p.m. Friday game match here in the Eastern Time Zone, will feature Everton and Man U in a battle of two teams that are heading in very different directions in the Premier League. For Man U, the gleam is back in their eye. The Ronaldo drama is over. The team has looked good, and Marcus Rashford is on fire. He has scored in every single match since we've been back from the World Cup break. Meanwhile, for Everton, Hamlet had less woe is me in their support than their supporters right now. And I mean, it's understandable. They're back in a relegation fight for one of the few teams who've never been relegated from the Premier League. It's got to be jarring to the fans, and those fans are taking it out on Frank Lampard, which all of that makes this matchup so intriguing to me. Everton need a win. Frank Lampard needs one even more than the side. And they don't have a midweek matchup next week as the Carabao quarters are on. The Carabao Cup quarters are on. So, they've got a chance to fix it. Man U, meanwhile, are still in the Carabao Cup, and they've been taken care of with a lucky draw against League One Charlton. So why I don't think we'll see their best 11. They're not really under immense pressure in the final 8 of the Carabao Cup. I think we see a strong Everton early, but Rashford will be around if Man U need help in the second half, and then look out. The question is, if Man U can prevail, and I think they can, will Frank Lampard survive? I don't know, but it's going to be interesting. And I love Frank Lampard. But so the marquee matchup of the weekend is Man City and Chelsea at the Etihad. And while I'm recording this Wednesday, those two teams are going to meet tomorrow, Thursday. And so I'd watch those lineups to get a hint at what Sunday might look like. Chelsea can't afford to drop any more points in the league. But realistically, neither can City if they want to repeat as Premier League champions. City also have the added burden of another Carabao Cup fixture midweek against Premier League bottom Southampton, though no matter what the Saints' league position is, they always, and for a while, have seemed to pose problems and beat better teams in cups. Pep cares about every competition, way more so than every other Premier League manager. And being in the last 8 of a cup's got to catch the eye way more than being in the last 64. I think City is going to rotate more than Chelsea, who have nothing midweek after the FA Cup. That said, Chelsea have got to find their attacking best, and they have to stop allowing teams to take the competition to them. Or City is going to go 2-0 against Chelsea this week, and then all hell is going to break loose on Chelsea's social media. All the other Premier League matchups, we've got Liverpool taking on Wolves. Liverpool looking less than dominant recently. Wolves are in the relegation zone. And Wolverhampton themselves are still in the League Cup. So I'd imagine we see a Liverpool win here, but we'll see. Palace are taking on the Saints, but you think they'd rather have their sights set on saving their Premier League status and the League Cup quarters. And Palace are not really that bad to begin with, although they, not today. But I wouldn't want to see the Saints on my fixture list for any of these. And then we have Brentford taking on West Ham. West Ham haven't looked like they could beat a League One side at the moment. And the Bees have their fans screaming, "Hey Jude," at the community stadium. It's going to be rocking. That's where the match is on Sunday. And I don't see anyone blowing bubbles anywhere this weekend, unless it's like in black and white and maybe like with a little sad music, a real French film vibe. Sorry, West Ham. But so when we look at which Premier League sides might be vulnerable to losing to a lower league side, I'd start with the obvious and point you to Bournemouth versus Burnley, which I've struggled to say multiple times rehearsing this. Burnley sit atop the championship. They didn't look like a relegation side last year, and they are trucking along back to the Prem. They almost look unstoppable. Bournemouth haven't won since the World Cup break, and they don't really look amazing. We'll see. I also think Forest might be vulnerable here. Now, they're taking on a champ championship side in Blackpool who haven't impressed. In fact, they're in the relegation zone, looking back to League One. But Forest themselves are in a relegation zone, and Forest have a maybe winnable Carabao Cup match against the Wolves midweek. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some decent rotation there. Plus, Middlesbrough, who are at current playoff side in the championship, are taking on Brighton, who have impressed admittedly, but they themselves are also still in the League Cup. So if you watch this show, you know my feelings on Brighton, but they aren't playing only to stay up this year. They look good. Maybe they take a big swing and go for that trophy in the League Cup, or Europe is not out of the realm of possibility, but we'll see. Finally, Sheffield Wednesday are in great form in League One, and Newcastle aren't doing that bad themselves in the Premier League. Maybe they might be overlooking it, not taking it seriously, so we'll see if the Owls can catch the Magpies napping in Sheffield. Weirder things can and do happen in the FA Cup. So let's take a look at those big swings, the major upsets that make this competition so fun to watch year after year. This year, there are 3 sides from non-league positions. All of these teams are from the National League, which is the 5th tier of English football. Of those sides, I'd have to say the one with the best chance of moving through to the 4th round would have to be a familiar favorite, Boreham Wood. Last year, Boreham Wood made it all the way to the 5th round, not just the 4th, but to the 5th round. And like this year, they did so facing no Premier League opposition until they met Everton and lost. This year, they drew League One laggards, Accrington Stanley, who are famous in Britain for their role in an 80s milk ad. Boreham Wood are mid-table in the National League, and thus they are the lowest team remaining on the English football pyramid in the FA Cup, but they just seem to have the magic about them. Last year, they also fell outside their league's playoffs and didn't make the league, but they did beat a championship side, so their presence is as vexing as it is delightful, and let's see if they can repeat last year's successes. Meanwhile, our other 2 non-league sides are Wrexham and Chesterfield, who are positioned 2nd and 3rd in the National League and thus are in playoff positions. They draw championship opposition in Coventry and West Brom. And if there's hope for Wrexham, it's in Coventry's form. They are winless in their last 3, and they aren't exactly goal-scoring machines. They've only scored the 20th most goals. That would be 5th fewest in the championship. And that said, but they do play a pretty strong defense. But also, Wrexham has scored 62 goals against National League opposition. It doesn't seem like Coventry would be vulnerable to the kind of breakout and smash sort of 1-0 loss that Wrexham might angle for. And they seem perfectly capable of defending in normal play, so we shall see. Feelings for me here are Wrexham will need to snatch one early and open up the game if they want to move on. So for Chesterfield, they neither score as well nor defend as well as Wrexham in the National League, and they are facing a West Brom side who have won their last 3 while conceding 0 goals. It's a tough task, but they will be playing at home in one of the great joys of the FA Cup, the non-league stadium. It's awesome seeing these big-time sides playing in front of apartment blocks. But that won't really be the case at Chesterfield. They have a 10,000-seat stadium called Technique Stadium, and it's very modern and will no doubt be sold out. But Boreham Wood is at home, and their 1,700-seat Meadow Park will be on display. Might be worth a peek over to that match just to check out their ground. All right, I'm already going on much longer than I thought, but I would be remiss if I didn't point out at least one lower league only match that I think could be super fun. Yeah, there's a top of the championship matchup in Sheffield United and Millwall, And there's a top of League One matchup in Derby versus Barnsley. But forget about the matches you could see on any given Saturday in their respective leagues. If there's one interdivision matchup where we could see goals and lots of them, why not take a peek at Burton Albion taking on Grimsby Town? Albion, who are from League One, have given up more goals than anyone in the entire English Football League and more than anyone not in the relegation zone of the National League in the top 5 leagues. Grimsby, meanwhile, they're from League 2. They're a recently promoted side up to that, and they put up 5 goals against the leader of League 1 in the FA Cup first round, Plymouth Argyle. Remember, this is the 3rd round, so we've already had some FA Cup action, and I'd love to see a 5-3 match and let them light up your goal show. Okay, that's all. But a reminder for you can watch every goal on the goal show and go all around the grounds. And there's every single match of the FA Cup 3rd round starting on Friday evening on ESPN+. I'm sure some of the matches that I haven't highlighted will have upsets too, but, well, we're trying to keep this short. And if I was better at picking those, I'd pick them in gambling, and then I'd retire from my real job and make this podcast every day. That's really not in the cards. So for the Too Many Guys Soccer Show, this is Chelsea Mike, and while I did okay this week, it's probably not good enough to leave my job, and so I'll try to do better next time.